The man who admitted to killing a prominent Somerset attorney was sentenced today in a deal that many said they didn't like, but they agreed on nonetheless.
Another down day on Wall Street after the Dow plunges at the start of trading. We'll show you what fueled the lower numbers.
For the 13th year in a row, University of Kentucky students and faculty are giving back to the community. We'll tell you how coming up.
Tracking, alerting, protecting. This is WKYT News at 5.
An evil monster. Those are the words a murdered attorney's widow used to describe the man who admitted to killing her husband.
Clinton and Abnett received 23 years in prison today for the shooting death of Mark Stanziano in Somerset last year. WKYT's Phil Pendleton has reaction to the sentence in our top story at 5.
It was a plea deal that everyone signed off on, but almost everyone in the courtroom told the judge that they didn't like what took place in sending Clinton and Abnett to prison for 23 years, and after that, 3 years on probation.
That he left 3 daughters without a dad, 3 grandchildren without their grandpa.
Mark Stanziano's daughter and wife wanted to talk to the judge before the man accused of taking his life was sent off to prison.
If this court has any say, I hope that you sentence him to prison. It's where he belongs. He is the epitome of evil. He is a monster.
Bethany Stanziano signed off on the plea deal, as did the prosecutor, who said no one really likes it. He said it shows the failure of the mental health care system in Kentucky. An Abnett's attorney questioned why Abnett was even allowed to roam free before the crime happened, saying professionals had even labeled him a textbook paranoid schizophrenic case.
It took him committing this crime to be able to be hospitalized to get the treatment he needed.
And Abnett will have to serve 85% of his sentence before he's eligible for parole. That means that he could be eligible after about 19 years in prison. Much more at 6 o'clock, but for now, in Pulaski County, Phil Pendleton, WKYT.
Had this case gone to trial, Abnett's attorney said he would have tried to get a jury to rule him not guilty by reason of insanity.
American financial markets taking a major hit on this day. The Dow falling more than 1,000 points just after the opening bell, finishing more than 500 points down. Marley Hall is on Wall Street with more on what it means for the economy.
Trading on Wall Street Monday was nothing less than a roller coaster. And like most scary rides, the biggest drop was the first one. Just 3 minutes after the opening bell, the Dow Jones Industrial Average lost more than 1,000 points. A midday rally erased 90% of what was lost, but it didn't last. And the Dow ended the day down almost 600 points. Trader Peter Tuckman tried to keep it in perspective.
You know, is this the end of the world? No. Is this a crash? No. Is it quite a sell-off? Is it correction territory? Perhaps.
The sell-off started overseas as huge losses in China knocked more than 4% off of European markets.
Investors are concerned about China's crumbling economy, but traders here at the New York Stock Exchange say today's losses can be a unique opportunity.
From a trader, this is what we live for.
Markets around the globe reacted to the slowdown of China's growth.
Well, it's the second largest economy in the world, and from 2007, they were the life raft to the world economy. That trade's no longer there.
August is typically a quiet time in equity markets, but today's volatility suggests this ride might not be over. Marley Hall, CBS News, New York.
And falling oil prices were also part of the mix today. A barrel of crude tumbled more than $2 to $38.24.
A weekend car crash killed 3 children in western Kentucky. 7 children were in the car when the adult driver lost control on Kentucky 56 in Davis County. WKYT's Kristen Kennedy is at the live desk for us with more on what happened. Kristen?
Amber, a Kentucky coroner says 10-year-old Hunter Glass and 13-year-old Sierra Morris died at the scene of that wreck. Troopers say 12-year-old Alexandra Glass died at a hospital, and 7-year-old Catherine Glass is in critical condition at Coast Air Hospital in Louisville. According to Kentucky State Police, all 4 of those children were ejected from the SUV they were riding in, and all 4 were not wearing seatbelts.
State police say the driver was Lori Swanson from Owensboro. They say Swanson was driving east on Kentucky 56 when she came upon another car partially in her lane. State police say she swerved to avoid that car, overcorrected, and lost control. Her 2002 Chevrolet Tahoe ran off the road and into a bean field. Now, people who drive Kentucky 56 often say this stretch of road is one to be extra cautious on while driving.
Well, we always go a little under the speed limit, and we always watch both ways before we exit. We come to a complete stop and make sure and give it a couple minutes to check from both sides, because usually the cars that come around the curve usually come a little bit faster than normal. So we try to be really careful, but it is definitely a dangerous spot in my opinion.
We are told a 14-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 1-year-old survived the crash along with the driver. At the live desk, Kristen Kennedy, WKYT.
Kristen, thank you. Kentucky State Police are still investigating this accident. Well, another blast of fall air has arrived in the area. We'll have pleasant temperatures during the day and cool ones at night. WKYT meteorologist Jim Caldwell is here now with an early check of the forecast. It is just delightful out there.
It is delightful. Now, late tonight and early tomorrow morning, folks might say, this is a little chilly, because we're not quite ready for what may come tonight with upper 40s, low 50s, a possibility for some of you. We look outside right now and it's all about the gorgeous factor, and that's what we have underway. You do see some cloud cover, but not much. A few little clouds here and there, very small, if they're showing up at all in your area. Current temperatures across the Commonwealth, well, you'll find those in the mid and upper 70s and even some low 80s. Monticello, Middlesboro, and the folks out in Prestonsburg and Ashland also coming in there in the low 80s. Everybody very pleasant, though. Even though you're seeing an 80-degree temperature, doesn't mean it's hot. It's very nice, actually. We look at Defender now. We're tracking a whole lot of nothing out there, and this will be what it looks like, I think, all week long. The only difference is we might see some cloud cover try to drift in. We don't track that with the radar anyway. That's with the satellite. So that's the only change. So it's all about the fall feel, feeling fine, and it's going to continue to do so as we move through the next few days. We'll track how strong it gets and how cool that means for you coming up in just a few minutes.
The case against a man accused of killing his girlfriend is moving forward. Our county-by-county coverage begins in Clay County. 21-year-old Isaiah Stidham is accused of shooting Sherry Collins to death during an argument earlier this month. Investigators say he cut himself to try and make it look like she attacked him. Today, a judge waived the case on to a grand jury. Another fundraiser will help the family of a Franklin County high school athlete who suddenly became sick. Bradley Kamek collapsed during soccer practice earlier this month. He's now at Kentucky Children's Hospital recovering from encephalitis. Tomorrow, Casa Fiesta on Louisville Road will donate 25% of each meal ticket to Kamek's family. There's also a fundraiser scheduled for September 1st, and family and friends have set up a GoFundMe page.
It is the start of the school year tradition of UK students. Today, more than 1,000 of them went out into the community as volunteers. WKYT's Mike Linden shows us what they did to give back to Lexington. The story's new at 5.
Just a few days before classes begin, UK students are coming together to help the Lexington community at Fusion.
And it's basically just a big day where UK celebrates volunteerism, service, and giving back to the Lexington community.
Fusion stands for unity and service in our neighborhoods. Now in its 13th year, Lexington Mayor Jim Gray says Fusion is the largest single-day volunteer event in the state.
Right here in Lexington, it's a caring and giving community, and these students are really showing that in a really wonderful way.
Organizers say that more than 1,000 volunteers are set to go out to more than 70 sites in the Lexington community to do various tasks from office work all the way to yard work.
One of the largest groups of volunteers is cleaning up the African Cemetery No. 2 on East 7th Street. Volunteers say it's a great way to learn more about the city where they live.
I feel like every community has something to offer, and I think it's somewhat of our duty to give back to the community as well.
Even after a long day's work, volunteers say it's totally worth it.
We get so much more as volunteers when we serve. There's connections that'll be made today. There's students that will meet new friends out of the people that they're serving today and connecting with, and it's just a really awesome experience all around for everyone involved.
In Lexington, Mike Linden, WKYT.
That is a great way to start the school year. This year, more than 1,300 students came out to volunteer.
Up with the latest news on WKYT.com. Join the conversation on Twitter and become a part of the WKYT Facebook family.
Here's a look at the most viewed stories on our website right now. People want to know about a body found along a road, a ghost train taking visitors to an abandoned mining camp, and 3 children killed in a crash. You can find these stories and more on WKYT.com.
More testimony today during a formal sentencing hearing for Colorado theater shooter James Holmes. Earlier this month, a jury recommended Holmes spend life in prison. Today, a judge sentenced him on 141 other counts, including attempted murder and an explosives charge. 12 people died in the July 2012 shooting rampage. Members of their families had a chance to speak during the hearing.
It's clear that the defendant meant harm, deadly harm, to hundreds of people. He intended evil.
The jury could have sentenced Holmes to death, but they could not reach a unanimous decision. A wildfire burning in Washington state has reached a record size. The fire in Okanagan measured just over 400 square miles last night, making it the largest fire in state history. And while firefighters are trying to get it stopped, it's expected to spread more in the coming days.
A special honor today for 3 Americans credited with stopping a possible terror attack. Alec Scarlatos, Spencer Stone, and Anthony Sadler encountered a heavily armed man on a train in France last week. The 3 didn't hesitate to stop him. Today, the president of France presented them with the Legion of Honor, one of the country's highest awards.
And I saw he had what looked to be an AK-47, tackled him. Alec came up and grabbed the gun out of his hand while I put him in a chokehold. It seemed like he just kept pulling more weapons left and right, took out a box cutter, started jabbing at me with that.
Scarlatos is a member of the Army National Guard, while Stone is in the Air Force. Stone suffered a serious cut to the thumb, but still helped save the life of another passenger. The company behind Ashley Madison wants to know who hacked their site. Toronto-based Avid Life Media is offering a $500,000 reward, leading to an arrest. Hackers released detailed records of people registered on the site last week. The site is marketed as a way for people to set up extramarital affairs.
Now, the buzz is growing over whether Vice President Joe Biden will run for president. Talk increased after he met with Senator Elizabeth Warren over the weekend. Vice President Biden also had lunch with President Obama, but the White House would not say if they discussed a potential campaign.
Those conversations tend to be wide-ranging, and they cover everything from work to family. I'll leave it to you to decide whether or not you think that this decision facing the Vice President falls in either of those 2 categories.
The Vice President has said he will announce his decision by the end of the summer if he runs. It will be his 3rd presidential bid if he does. Is there more bourbon hanging around a historic Kentucky distillery? A wild turkey in Lawrenceburg will be the focus of an episode of Ghost Hunters airing this week. The show follows the Atlantic Paranormal Society as they investigate paranormal activity around the country. The episode airs at 9 Wednesday night on Sci-Fi. The Courier Journal reporting this season will also feature episodes on the old Fort Herod State Park in Harrodsburg and the Conrad Caldwell House Museum in Louisville.
It is time now for better living, health, education, and consumer news that impacts your life. Deaths from heart disease have declined dramatically for older adults, but young people and women are not seeing the same improvements. Kenneth Craig shows us the problems those groups face.
New research shows deaths from heart disease have declined dramatically over the last few decades in people over 65. But that's not true for people under 55, especially women.
The next step would be trying to understand why this younger population is not showing the improvement that the older patients do. Is it because of the traditional risk factors and they're citing increase in obesity and diabetes?
Researchers at Emory University also point out that diabetes and obesity may pose a greater heart disease risk for younger women.
Heart disease is still the #1 killer of men and women in the U.S. It's responsible for 1 in every 4 deaths.
Cardiologist Alexander Gornitsky says the study highlights the need to rethink strategies that focus on traditional risk factors like high blood pressure and cholesterol.
Maybe it's time to look outside of those things and look at stress management, sleep, all kinds of quality of life issues.
Experts say depression is also a powerful predictor for heart disease in young women. Kenneth Craig, CBS News, New York.
The number of people getting cancer more than once is on the rise. A recent study found 19% of cancers in the U.S. are second cases or more. In the 1970s, that number was only 9%. Researchers found many people who survive a first case of cancer live long enough to get it a second time.
Sometimes you're at risk for getting another cancer because of the previous one you had, but other times you're cured of your first cancer and you're just at risk, like the normal population, for getting a different cancer.
Since the 1970s, cases of first cancer rose 70%, while second cancers rose 300%.